Episode 3 of the Duhcast is here. What's going on, everybody? Dennis Farrell here. Before we get started with the podcast, I wanted to do a little pre-record here and give you guys a little bit of warning. This is a pre-recorded episode. By the time it drops, James Ellsworth will be in the United Kingdom, as we explained early in this podcast. Towards the end of the podcast, the audio gets just a little bit fuzzy and poppy. Hopefully you guys will endure it to get to the end of it. Some really good stuff between myself and James this week. Unfortunately, he was in a car driving back from a show. I was stuck in a hotel in Kansas City, Missouri, and it was the only time to get this done, or there would not be an episode 3 this week. And being a brand new podcast, we did not want to leave you fans out in the cold without episode 3. So hopefully you'll stick with us. You'll forgive us. We had to deal or work with what we had, and unfortunately this was the best situation. But episode 3 of the Duhcast, as we say at the end, I'll do a quick little promotion before I start the podcast. Help us grow the podcast. Send your friends to iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, wherever you get your podcast. Search Wrestling Perspective Podcast. You will get every Tuesday night the Duhcast featuring James Ellsworth, of course. And every Thursday night you will get myself and Petey Williams, the Canadian Destroyer, with the Wrestling Perspective. So hopefully you will send your friends there. You can also send them to WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com. Share it on your social media. Tell your friends. Shout it from a rooftop. Use smoke signals if you have to. But we're leaning on you, the fans, to help us grow. In the next week or so, when James gets back from the UK, we will start giving away autographed pictures of either James Ellsworth or Petey Williams. And then the pictures is an inscription, there we go, thanking you, the fans, for listening to the podcast. So, and all you have to do is share the podcast, tweet it out, tell your friends, Facebook, MySpace, whatever you use, just tell your friends about it, and then send us an email. You can do it straight from the website, WrestlingPerspectivePodcast.com, or WrestlingPerspective@gmail.com. You can also use both methods to contact the show. If you have a question for us, if you have comments you'd like us to read, insight on what you thought you liked and didn't like from whatever week in wrestling. But you won't hear us talk about the week in Raw or SmackDown because, of course, we pre-recorded it beforehand. But we thank you for sticking with us, and good luck getting through this episode. It was a lot of good stuff, but some crackling and popping, but hopefully you, the fans, will still enjoy it and support it. Thank you, and on with the show. It's time for the Duhcast here on Wrestling Perspective. I'm Dennis Farrell, and he's...
Duh.
James, what's going on, my friend? Both of us are on the road this week, and as people will start downloading and listening, you will be having tea and crumpets with the Queen over in the UK.
Yeah, I'm heading to UK tomorrow on my way home right now for a nap, basically. I just was in New Jersey filming some stuff for Grimm's Toy Show, and now I'm on my way home, literally just to go to bed and wake up and go to the United Kingdom.
What kind of plans do you have over there?
Oh, man, well, I got to do some Q&As, like where, a promoter over there takes me around to some establishments and do some Q&As with the great fans over there in the United Kingdom. And then I'm wrestling for IPW against Jimmy Havoc, of all people, on Wednesday.
Nice. So you're actually on the road. I'm in a hotel, so this is a bit, it's different. Do you feel safe right now?
Oh yeah, man. I've been driving since I was 16 years old. I'm 33. I think I know what I'm doing behind this wheel.
I think you're good to go. So let's get going with this week's Duhcast. And by the way, everybody reaching out, we love it. Thank you so much for the emails, the compliments on Twitter, and going up to James at shows and telling him you love the podcast. That's cool, huh?
Yeah, man. Like I said, I was real busy this week. I had a show Thursday in Georgia, Friday in New York, Saturday in Canada, Sunday in New Jersey, and every single show I went to, I had some people come up to me and said, "Hey, enjoying the Duhcast so far. Please keep it up." And I said, "Absolutely." And I'm very appreciative of the nice feedback, and I hope we continue this for a long, long time.
A lot of people were like, "Hey, who's that clown? Let's get rid of him."
Oh yeah, of course. Duh.
So let's talk a little bit about the greatest Royal Rumble. By now, you guys have seen it all, heard it all. There are just a few things you and I want to touch on. Overall, your feelings of that show.
Well, last week on the Dogcast episode 2, I said, man, I don't know what to really think about the show. I don't know if it's a glorified live event or if it's a pay-per-view feel. And after watching it, it was, to me, a very good glorified live event.
I actually echo those sentiments. I watched it. It didn't really have the feel of a pay-per-view. It almost felt like the Starrcade event that wasn't televised that everybody wished was at WWE put on last year. It kind of had that feel to it.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, like no titles changed hands, obviously, other than the Raw tag titles, which were vacant, but everyone retained their titles. Strowman, who everyone pretty much predicted would win the greatest Royal Rumble, he won, and he should have. But I'm saying, like, yeah, it just, it was, to me, like a glorified live event. And, obviously coming out of it, Titus O'Neil is the most talked about guy in wrestling right now.
What was the worst, the Titus or the mix-up between Jinder Mahal and Jeff Hardy?
Professionally, the Jinder Mahal thing. I know Jinder. He's a good guy, and he cares a lot about his craft. And he just had a brain fart. It happens to us all, and I know he's probably really upset with himself right now. The Titus O'Neil thing is a good thing, but let me touch on that for a minute. He is very, very lucky he did not hit his head on. There's a metal bar that goes across the ring under the apron there. He is very, very, very fortunate and lucky that he did not hit his head on that and split his head wide open.
Now, he was on the internet doing damage control. He shot a video afterwards that said it was planned. I'm not so sure it was planned.
No, I think he shouldn't. I think he feels embarrassed, and really he shouldn't, because, I mean, when he comes out on Raw, hopefully they have him on the show tomorrow. He's going to get a big reaction because that's a viral thing on the internet, and everybody's watching it. Even people that aren't wrestling fans are watching it. It's all over the place, and like I just said, that video he filmed almost feels like he's embarrassed about it, and he really shouldn't be. He should look at it as, man, I'm glad I didn't split my head open on the bar, and I have this comedy thing that's all over the internet right now that people are enjoying watching. And it doesn't matter what you did. If people are enjoying it, that's all that matters. It's sports entertainment. That's what we're in. We're in the entertainment business. And that was entertaining, and he should just leave it at that.
Does WWE booking now make him fall every time he comes out to the ring now? I'm afraid that this is going to be what he's going to be saddled with.
No, I don't think they do. I'll be surprised if they do, because I think it'll take away from how special that moment was. I hope not. But you never know. We'll see what happens. Anything could happen in World Wrestling Entertainment, as they've been saying my whole life.
The winners and losers of the actual 50-man Royal Rumble, you saw Daniel Bryan in there for an hour and 16 minutes. Do you think, and I don't think that these records should hold up versus actual Royal Rumble records. This is an event of its own, and I've heard some discussion on whether it's actually going to go into the record books if someone broke a record, like Daniel Bryan's 1 hour and 16 minutes. I hope that this is separate and it doesn't go into analogs of Royal Rumble history.
Well, on WWE, like on our Twitter page and all, they're claiming it's a record, but I agree with you. It's 50 men. Obviously, the match is longer than 30 men, or even the one time they had a 40-man Royal Rumble. They did have that once. Alberto Del Rio won it. Yeah, I agree. It's 20 more people coming through the curtain, and it takes longer. So it's to me, it's just a kind of tongue-in-cheek record, and I don't agree with it either.
Would you, in baseball terms, put an asterisk by it?
Yeah, I mean it's impressive. Like, trust me, man. Anytime you're in the ring for over an hour and taking that much punishment, like Daniel Bryan did, especially the chops from I guess Roderick Strong did that to him. I didn't see the whole thing.
Wow.
6 hours of wrestling is just a little too much for me. Just my humble opinion. But yeah, and, it's impressive to be in there that long. I'm not taking away from that at all. What Daniel Bryan did was very impressive, and I know he enjoyed every minute of it because he's just very happy to be back in the ring, and I'm happy for him. What a great guy, and he's very passionate. But yeah, as far as I'm concerned, that's the regular Royal Rumble, which I talked about a couple of weeks ago. It's been so tainted anyway because the winner of the Royal Rumble is supposed to always main event WrestleMania, and that's not the case half the time. And I just wish they would go back to that and keep up with that tradition. Go back to that tradition.
I totally agree. They give Braun Strowman a belt for winning in a trophy. I hope he doesn't come out to Raw now carrying the belt. I hope that belt doesn't become a thing. Take a picture, put it in your trophy case, and move on.
Right, absolutely. And me too. I agree, and I hate to agree with you. Trust me, I dread talking to you every week. But I do agree with you. And, yeah, too many titles on the show, man. If everyone is coming out carrying a championship belt or a title, as they like to say in WWE, it's not belt, it's title. Belts are to keep your pants up, according to the great Vince McMahon. But, yeah, if, more and more people are carrying out titles, the less and less they mean. Because if everyone has one, they mean less. But if not everyone has one, they mean more. Less is more.
If I had to get rid of one, I think the United States Championship would go. And it hurts me at being a WCW guy, but one of them has to go. You're right. One too many. One of them has to go. And they're neglecting not having a women's tag team match or tag team champions, but you can't have one on both shows because both those divisions are so thin as it is with talent.
I know I've heard some rumblings about them bringing in women's tag team titles. I hope they don't. One title for each brand for the women's great, and I love women's wrestling. And I do intergender matches, and I love the girls at WWE. I had a blast working with them. It was very, very good time in my life, and they were all very nice to me. I just feel like for them, again, my humble opinion, having one title in each show, SmackDown Live Women's Championship and a Raw Women's Championship, and all the girls are gunning for that. If they have tag titles, it's kind of all right, they're going to throw two girls together on each brand, and each brand's going to have tag titles. It's just too much. Again, to me, maybe I'm just old school. Less is more.
The big controversy coming out was a lack of women's wrestling on the show due to the Saudi Arabia culture. It's not permitted or allowed. I, for one, think it was a great business decision to go over regardless. As a fan and semi-reporter here, I don't think it takes away from the women's revolution as much as people think it does. Are you okay? Because they paid, almost $200 million to bring the WWE over? That's a smart business decision to have them go.
I think in WWE's heads, the women will be allowed over there one day, and that'll be another big moment for the women. And I think that's their mindset. I think they're like, man, it's going to be history when we do have a women's match over here. They did it in where did they do a women's match that it was history? Was it Dubai or
something like that?
India. Yeah. And it was Sasha Banks and Alexa Bliss, both great talents, and they made history. And Sasha, I remember, was very passionate about that. Sasha's a very, very passionate girl. She's loved wrestling her whole life. She came up through the independents, through NXT, and now she's a huge star in WWE. And she was very passionate about her and Alexa Bliss doing that. And I think that's WWE's mindset. Yeah, this ain't happening right now. They got to respect the Saudi Arabian culture. But in the future, and the culture's changing over there. Women are allowed to drive now and stuff like that. I'm not too familiar with their religion or how that works, but I see what I read, and I think that's their mindset. One day they'll make history and have a women's match over there.
I was curious about fan reactions. I was talking to Petey earlier over at the Wrestling Perspective podcast that we do, and about different cultures over in Japan that they'll clap, but they watch intently, and it doesn't mean that they're not interested in the show. Saudi Arabia, that was such a weird feel to that crowd that they just get up and move around willy-nilly, and the whole bottom of that floor being just about empty, it seemed like a waste of seats.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about the crowd. They got loud at some points. Like if the bigger the star, the bigger the pop, which is pretty much anywhere you go. But like when Chris Jericho came out, they knew Chris Jericho, and they were loud for like the bigger stars. My observation. Like I said, I didn't watch entirely the whole thing. I did pay attention to the whole thing as far as social media and Twitter and what have you. But from what I saw, like they were loud for the bigger stars.
And that's good. Overall, I think that if they were more into it, and I don't know how. The one thing I think I want to do in the future now is I want to go and look up and see what kind of fan base or impact that WWE had over in Saudi Arabia before this event, because as a wrestler, when you go to an event and the crowd's just not into it, you have to work harder, and especially from a television aspect, it kind of hurts.
Yeah, man. Trust me, as a performer, still to this day, the better the crowd reacts, the happier I am, and the easier my job is. It's very hard when the crowd's not reacting, and all you want is for people to react, and that's what you're there for. You're there to give them their money's worth and try to get them to invest into you and into the match and into your opponent and into yourself. And if they're just not making any noise, it makes it a lot more difficult.
I know, changing gears here, that I don't know how much you want to get into this, and I'm popping this on you real quick. But in the news just the other day, Jack Swagger is blasting a promoter for being a liar, a cheat, and stealing from him, and it's making some big noise. And I've talked to Petey in the past about this. How do you yourself protect yourself? And I know you're kind of going through something like that, and you probably may or may not want to talk too much about it. But how do you protect yourself? And then what do you have as a wrestler recourse to try to recoup that money?
Well, the first thing you do is get a deposit before they ever advertise you, which I always do. So they send me a deposit before I allow them to advertise me. There was a guy in New Orleans. He screwed over a lot of the Impact girls, like Chelsea Green, Rosemary Ellie. There's a bunch of them were supposed to do something at a bar, an appearance, and he basically sold tickets and took the money and ran. And he did the same thing to me. But I got a deposit, and from what I understand, and don't quote me on this, maybe I'm wrong, but from what I understand, those girls didn't. But I got a deposit. I made the appearance anyway at the bar because the bar on Bourbon Street there, the Cat's Meow, where I made my appearance. They were nice staff there and treated me well. And it wasn't through them. Like a guy basically said, "Hey, I'm bringing James Ellsworth to the bar, Wrestlemania week, and can we have the space? We'll bring you in business." And they're like, "Yeah, sure." They happen to be wrestling fans too. So I went there. And, I sold merch and pictures and all, and I made, some money back on that. But, the guy still owes me money, still owes the girls money. But I did get a deposit, so that's how I protected myself a little bit. I did get paid at least, a little bit of the money that he owes me. But, man, it's never going to end, dude. Especially on an independent level. You're going to have your carny promoters that screw people over. And, there's less now than there were 10 years ago, and hopefully 10 years from now, there'll be even less. But there's always, in any line of business, there's always your assholes, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Was there one moment, maybe after you left WWE or beforehand, that you got screwed over pretty badly, not counting this?
Nah, man, I luckily, very fortunate and blessed. It hasn't happened very often to me. It's happened, my career, maybe a handful of times, but not very often. And, right now, I'm not trying to give independent wrestling promoters a bad name. Right now, man, I've been back on the indie scene for 2.5 months, and 99% of the people I've dealt with have been great. It was just that one guy, so far. And, like I said, that's just with anything in life. You're always going to have your clowns that mess it up for everybody. But I will say this, and this is 100%, that the majority of the independent promoters I have dealt with have been very nice and very good, and the money's been there, and it's been a very fun ride for me thus far on the independent scene.
What advice would you have? Maybe somebody who was almost James Ellsworth like at year number 2 in their independent run to protect them who may not have the bigger name, that may not be able to demand. And it's probably hard to give them that kind of advice. But what would you say to year number 2, year number 3 independent wrestler guy to protect themselves?
Man, you just gotta use your own judgment. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a dog, it's probably a duck. So be eyes open, ears open, and make good judgment on who you work for. But like I said, man, most of the people out there are kind and good and with the money and generous. But 9 out of 10 indie promoters, I would say, are fine. It's just you get that one asshole in any classroom or any job site or it's just that's anywhere in life. There's the one guy that just screws it up for everybody.
You said something a few minutes ago that rings so true. Is 3, 4, 5, 6 years ago, and it's not a black eye on the indie industry, but it was pretty bad, and those guys have slowly been cycled out. And you don't hear a lot about that nowadays because of the internet protection. The boys talk to each other.
Yeah, man, that guy at the Black Hat events, and I hate to give him any publicity, but Zack Ryder's online retweeting, hey, this guy's a con artist, and me, and Chelsea Green, and, whoever else. Now he's got a black eye. Nobody's going to want to deal with him, and it sucks because the guy, for me, the guy booked me before, an autograph signing and paid me and everything was fine. So, for him to do this to me, I'm like, wow, we worked together before. And it was, literally 2 months ago when I first hit the indies and, everything with that was good. Then he gave me that. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's fine. And he gave me a deposit for that. I'm like, all right, this guy's the real deal. But at the end of the day, he sold tickets for all these events and just took the money, online. He sold tickets online and didn't pay me the rest of my fee, didn't pay those girls anything. And just left us all hanging. And, of course, if you talk to him, he'll blame something else or somebody else. But at the end of the day, he was the one that was supposed to pay us. And it's just sad, man. And but, yeah, this day and age, independent promoters are more professional. They're smarter. The independents are on fire right now. A lot of good shows. I'm enjoying myself. And all in all, the indies are a great place to be right now. And like I said, you got one, scar on a pretty skin of independent wrestling right now. It's no big deal at the end of the day.
We're going to pretend our podcast is like the WWE universe, and if it didn't happen on the podcast, it didn't happen. But you did do a recent interview where you were talking about what Shane McMahon shared with you regarding your character. Can you talk a little bit about that now?
I don't remember exactly. Go ahead and just refresh my memory.
I'm looking through the internet, and it's popping up I think it's Sportspedia or something, or Sports Skeptica. One of the big headlines is on a recent edition, I guess you did a while ago on Stone Cold, you were talking with Shane McMahon, and you revealed some intriguing backstage conversation you had with Shane regarding the James Ellsworth character and what was, I guess, not what was going forward, about how you evolve them, maybe, is the word I'm looking for.
No, I think I know what you're referring to now. No, on the Stone Cold Steve Austin podcast, I was just talking about when I made my first appearance on SmackDown Live. AJ Styles was a heel at the time. He was the champion. He was looking for a partner, and Daniel Bryan, commissioner at the time, said, if you don't find a partner, AJ, we will provide you with one. So AJ, he's going up to everybody. Everybody's saying no to him. Everybody's saying no. Daniel Bryan pulls me in the screen and says, here's your partner, and it was me, James Ellsworth, at my second appearance coming off the Strowman match. My first appearance coming off the Strowman match. And the crowd, in Philadelphia, I'll never forget it, big pop. And if anybody's listening out there from Philly, thank you. I'll never forget that moment. And as soon as we cut that was live. As soon as the cameras went off, Shane McMahon came up to me. Hey, James, man, did you hear that pop, man? That was great. Did you hear that? He was excited for me. And right away, I was already a fan of Shane McMahon's work, as a fan. But right away, I knew Shane McMahon was a great guy. He was for the boys, and he just genuinely loved the business just by that reaction. And that was very cool. And Shane McMahon was always good to me while I was there. And I miss interacting with them, doing promos on TV with them. I got to do a lot with them. I did probably on screen maybe 7 or 8 promos if I had to guess off the top of my head, and just always a very cool guy to be around.
What was the one thing? I love hearing stories of Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon when you're the top of your industry and geniuses. What's the one thing that they told you that you were like, oh my gosh, that's genius. I'm carrying that with me for the rest of my life with, James Ellsworth, the wrestling character.
Oh man, like Vince McMahon just always, facial expressions sell. That's what sells. Not wrestling moves don't sell the audience. Facial expressions do. If you're not selling, nobody's buying. And man, that's going to stick with me for the rest of my life. Like, if you're not telling the story with your face, people aren't going to buy into it. And actors get taught that. And that's just 100% true and awesome advice. And I'll carry that with me for the rest of my life and the rest of my wrestling career.
Let's talk about something that has surprised me is the Carmella title reign and how amazing she has been doing that. I really don't want to see her drop the belt. She could be one of those characters that I don't even have to see her wrestle or defend it because I'm having a good time. I mean, was it last week when she replayed the highlight reel of her winning again? That was the most underrated heel move I've seen in a long time.
And, I'm still kind of a part of the storyline. Like, she's basically saying she won it on her own. And, Charlotte made light to it and saying, oh, the only reason you won is because of that chinless freak. And, it's pretty cool, man. Carmella, here's the thing. I'm always going to be a homer when it comes to Carmella because I had such a blast working with her. And I said that on so many interviews, and so many fans asked me at shows, how was Carmella? And I always said I loved working with Carmella, and that's 100% from the heart, man. She's a smart girl. That's the main thing I always say about her, how intelligent she is. And she plays her character so well. She's a little snobby girl from Jersey. She's a little Jersey girl, and she just throws, if she has a nice piece of jewelry, like that title is, she throws it in your face. She shows everybody, look at my jewelry. Look how pretty it is. And she's doing an awesome job, man. She's killing it. I actually sent her a text Wednesday, the day after she did that promo on SmackDown this week, the contract signing with Charlotte. And I said, hey, Carmella, you're killing it, and I'm very happy for you. And she wrote me back, oh, James, thank you, and I appreciate that. And I'm just so happy for her, dude, because I worked with her 11 months. Her and I were together on screen, and I very, very much am happy for her, and I hope she has a successful reign. They can do stuff where she gets herself counted out, gets herself DQ'd. That they got some legs with it. I'm not sure if I think they're going to go that route, but we'll see. And I just hope it all works out for her. I'm very happy for her.
And not that it's been talked about, you've been contacted, but would you be shocked? Would you be shocked if they called you and said, hey, we need you to show up for a one-off to either cost her or just help her? Because it feels like that would be honestly the natural progression of that storyline is James Ellsworth would pop in and either feel slighted that they cut him out of the highlight reel or that he's not been talked about, but you were a integral part of her getting that briefcase. Would you be shocked if they contacted you for that?
Well, I will say this: they haven't. Would I be shocked? I just don't know what their mindset is. I don't know what goes on behind those doors when they're in those meetings. Obviously, I loved it there, man. I had a blast, had a good time, and I'd be willing to do whatever they needed me to do, and I'll just leave it at that.
That would be interesting because WWE is kind of notorious for that, and they do it in a good way of popping people in, bringing storylines back to where they began, whether it's a one-off or even more. So I wouldn't be shocked as a fan and a one-sided friend because you don't like me, but I like you. I wouldn't be shocked to see you pop in.
That's true.
But you don't like
remains to be seen, and I know I would be down for whatever they needed me to do. I was blessed to be there. It was a dream come true, dude. At the end of the day, no matter what, they gave me that spot, that opportunity, and I appreciate everyone telling me how good of a job I did and all that. But man, I wouldn't have all these awesome indie bookings if I wasn't a WWE guy and all. And I know that, man. And I don't express that enough, I think. And if they needed me to do anything, I'd be right there.
James Ellsworth, the booker, where would you take the Carmella storyline going forward?
Ah, man, that's a good question. God, you actually did something, real good on the podcast. Finally, now you have a reason to be here. I think I would. What you just pitched is what I would do, and I'll leave it at that.
And if you had carte blanche, would you cost her or would you help her? Now, just from thinking of what James Ellsworth has done, his history in the WWE, what do you think you would want to do?
Man, it could go either way. She kind of used me and abused me and got rid of me, or on the other hand, the James Ellsworth character was so in love with Carmella, he would literally do anything for her. So I mean, it could go either way. We don't know where the character's mind is right now. He's not there. So is he still really in love with her and do anything for her, or has he came to his senses and realized that she just used him and she ruined his career and he's gone now? And is he upset at that? It just depends on where that character's mind is. Either way would work, I think. And be cool for the fans, and that's what it's about. It's the fans, to me anyway. I would love to come back and the fans, be happy to see me and do something cool, even if it's just a one-off. And but dude, either way, it could go either way, and I think that'd be great. And remains to be seen. We'll see. I'm down.
Let's move on and talk. Listen, I had a conversation with a buddy, I'd say probably a week ago. And
you don't have any friends. But anyway, go ahead.
I paid someone to talk to me about a week ago on the internet.
Okay, that makes sense.
And I feel like he was over-romanticizing the Attitude Era, which, don't get me wrong, we grew up in it, we watched it. I'm also a fan from the 80s. I think the Attitude Era was amazing, and it revolutionized wrestling. But from a wrestling aspect, wrestling matches, I think the Attitude Era was overrated. I could probably count on, and maybe you'll correct me or call me an idiot, but maybe 5 or 6 hands, not moments, not promos, not characters, but wrestling moments. You have Stone Cold and Bret Hart and the submission. Outside of that, I think from a wrestling aspect, the Attitude Era was a little bit overrated.
Man, you had Owen Hart on there having really good matches, British Bulldog, especially their European title matches. You've had some good matches, but it got overshadowed by those big moments. That's where you're probably confused because you remember the big moments more than the matches, and that's probably all it is.
Do you, if you had to rank the eras, we'll start at the 80s because we've seen clips, but we never really understood or watched anything from this. Not watched, but understood storylines from the 60s. But let's start from maybe even 70s, 80s. 90s Attitude Era to the Ruthless Aggression and where we are now. Where would you rank those as a fan, that enjoyment era? Does that make sense?
Me personally, 88 to 92 WWF and WCW was my favorite time. And that's me personally. I like the Attitude Era. I was a teenager during the Attitude Era, so of course I liked it. But yeah, 88 to 92, WWF, WCW, I really enjoyed. And I still do. I still go back and watch a lot of stuff from that time period.
I'm actually with you. I think the early 80s, late 80s to early 90s was phenomenal as far as storytelling. Because the problem now with wrestling is there's just so much of it. People can't get it's almost like binge watching TV. I think binge watching TV has ruined TV, where you need those commercial breaks to digest and compute what you just saw. In wrestling, you need a longer storyline to really get emotionally involved in a character. I think there's a lot of characters in both WCW, Ring of Honor that would have been so much bigger if, their 2-month storyline was 6 to 8 months long.
Yeah, you're right, man. There's just so much content. Raw's 3 hours, SmackDown's 2. You got NXT's an hour on Wednesday. And everything in between. It's just, there's 205 Live. There's just so much to watch, and I don't think people's attention spans are, I think they're very short these days, and people can't watch it all. And yeah, and that's the reason why it just takes them a while to get invested into a storyline. There's just so much going on. I think you're 100% right.
Do you want to still see Brock Lesnar as the champion while we were talking about this before we move on? Because the people are starting to revolt against Brock Lesnar as a champion, and quite frankly, I love it. People forget Brock Lesnar was not built as this amazing beast in his early runs during the Attitude Era. He was getting beat quite often.
Well, he went to UFC, and he's like, to Vince, that's a big deal. And he was UFC champion, so he's legit, and that goes a long way with Vince. And that's why he's having the run he is. Here's my fantasy booking. So right now, yes, I do want to see Brock Lesnar as a champion. I want to see Brock Lesnar defeated by Braun Strowman at SummerSlam. Braun Strowman's the champion, but here, then Braun Strowman just attacks Brock Lesnar attacks Braun Strowman after the match, throws him through tables. He's upset he lost the title. He destroys him, and out comes this year's Money in the Bank winner, cashes it in and wins the Universal title. It's such a heel move and a heel tactic. Roman Reigns is your new Universal Champion. Then you got a freaking crazy heel in Reigns, and a babyface in Strowman. But that to me is my fantasy book. And Roman Reigns this year's Money in the Bank winner, cashing in on Strowman after Strowman beats Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam. There's my fantasy booking of the year.
That's it. I like that. My thought would have been, eventually, whenever his contract is up, we know Brock Lesnar's going to leave, and maybe he comes back, and I'm pretty sure he will. My thought is, you just don't have him lose it. At some point, you just have him go, you're not paying me, I'm leaving, here's your belt. And it keeps him strong. It vacates him that belt for whoever else wants to have a tournament or something like that. But
it makes the next champion a paper champion. That's the only thing that's kind of weird about that. Next champion, they're like, oh, you didn't beat Brock for it. That's how people think. It's just, that's just my opinion. But I do think fans think that, oh, well, you didn't win that. That's Brock's title. He never lost it.
That's
old Tommy Good and Rocky Balboa, Rocky 5.
That's interesting insight. As we said, this is going to be a shorter episode. You're getting ready to go to the UK. You're on the road. I'm on the road. We'll take some questions here in a few minutes, as we got a whole bunch more to go through. But another thing I've been seeing on the internet about you is the supposed, and I don't know if I've ever seen you on an interview talk about this, but there was speculation. Let's talk about this WrestleMania stuff that's been going around, that maybe you were rumored to be in an angle where you were going through a transgender operation, and you were going to enter into the women's division that way.
I never was told that, and that was never pitched to me. I never heard about it until I saw it on the internet. I'm like, oh, I've never, nobody at WWE ever approached me about that. So that's just my take on that. I was never told that was a thing.
Would you do it? If someone came to you and said, hey, James, WrestleMania, transgender, women's division, do you do that?
I don't it's a TV show. We're just characters. We're just playing a character. So I'm sure if they wanted me to do it and they felt comfortable with it, then the way they would have presented it. To me, I don't want to make anybody upset. I have nothing against transgenders whatsoever, and I don't know if that would upset them if they know that I'm just playing one. But to me, I look at wrestling, man. It's a TV show. We're not real. It's like any other TV show. You're just playing a character. It's not really you, So I know that, but do transgenders know that, or do other people would that have got a bad publicity or not? I don't want. I wouldn't want to do anything that got bad publicity or hurt anybody's feelings about what they believe in. But I feel like if WWE were to go through with that, it would have just been in a way where people wouldn't have thought that. But and again, I get it's just a television show, and and that's all it is.
Do you at that point weigh what that does to you in the future on independent bookings, or do you live in that moment and now and make that decision?
It's something like that. If that, like I said, they never approached me with that. That's 100% true. They had never approached me with that. But if they did, I mean, I would have to go in a meeting, and so obviously it's a touchy subject, so we would have to talk it over. I wouldn't make a decision right away, or if they said, "Hey, this is what you're doing," I would have to talk. It's not being an egomaniac. It's just that certain subject is very touchy, and I would have just had to sit down and talk to everybody. And I'm sure they, I know how they operate. I don't think they would have done it in a way where it would have, they don't want to hurt anyone's, beliefs. They don't. I could say that about that company. They don't want to hurt anybody's beliefs. And, we saw it in Saudi Arabia. They don't want to hurt their beliefs. So they're a PG company, and I think if that were an angle, it would have been done in a way where you want to know it was kind of tongue in cheek. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Now that's an interesting subject because throughout the Attitude Era, we've seen different things handled with a little bit of insensitivity. Which, do you use the cop out that it was just a different time and they got away with things, or I don't know how you present it that you let that happen, but now we're in way more of a PG era.
Yeah, they changed with the times, man. Back in '97 to 2000, when the Attitude Era was going on, it was an edgier time. Jerry Springer was hot. Howard Stern was hot. Dude, I really enjoyed Beavis and Butthead. Beavis and Butthead was hot. South Park was hot. All these push the button type shows. So they just adjusted with the times back then, and that's what WWE's doing now. Now we're in a time where a lot of people are very vulnerable and they about their beliefs, and WWE has changed with the times. Very smart, intelligent, company. I work there, and I've seen it with my own eyes. They know what they're doing, man.
Let's get on to some listener questions because we still have to send this home with a little promotion and follow and all that kind of crap. But let's start with some fan emails. One from Jason. I don't know where Jason's from, but Jason wants to know, where are your favorite booking territories and states to wrestle in?
Oh man, I really like going to California. The fans over there are very, very loud and energetic, and the state's just beautiful. There's a lot of fun, cities in that state. Other than Oakland, Oakland's just scary, man. I wouldn't walk around those streets after 7 o'clock. But the fans there are cool, though, the Oakland wrestling fans. But I really like California. I'm from the East Coast. I like the East Coast. I'm a homer. I love the Baltimore wrestling fans, of course. In Baltimore, they treat me real nice. I get recognized everywhere I go in Baltimore, and the fans are so nice. I don't want to call myself a hometown hero or anything, but it seems like that's the way they treat me. And if I go to a Orioles game or Ravens game, hey man, I'll buy a drink, James Ellsworth. It's really cool. So I love my hometown fans, and so California, Baltimore, and anywhere in between, as long as the fans are loud, I'm loud for them.
He also had a follow-up question. Is there a town that just doesn't get behind you that you show up to and they just don't like you?
Oh, there's a couple of towns like that. I mean, which is fine as long as I'm getting a reaction. That's all I care about.
All right.
There's plenty of towns that they want to boo the crap out of James Ellsworth. I just did Joey Janela's Spring Break, was a really cool, unique show. Wrestlemania week where I wrestled Matt Riddle, who's a very popular independent wrestler. He used to be a UFC fighter. He's going to be a star, man. I hope he signs with WWE one day because he's a total package. He look, talent, he's legit. But I was a very big. There was 2,000 people there WrestleMania week. Very well promoted by those guys, and they booed the crap out of me when I came out, but they had fun with the James Ellsworth character against Matt Riddle. It was a very unique concept, and I don't mind getting booed at all as long as people are reacting. That's all I care about.
All right. Let's see here. Nicholas wants to know, how much was it to create the Intergender Championship?
Nicholas, former Raw Tag Team Champion. Thanks for listening, buddy. But no, it was about what I paid for it. I don't know, $1,000. I think.
That's not bad at all for what the, I guess what the return on your investment is right now.
Oh man, it's been great. I just wrestled a girl in Canada on Saturday, Madison Miles, her name. Look her up. Just she's gonna. She's only 18 years old. Like I was like, whoa, I'm wrestling an 18-year-old girl. I was kind of sketchy about it, but then she was really good. Been training for like 3 years. Like I guess she started when she was 15, and she's man, she's pretty decent now. Like she's got some a long way to go as far as psychology and all, but she's athletic. She's like she's what they're looking for in WWE as far as genetically, and man, if she's that good at 18, I can't wait to see her at like 23, 24. So, and the intergender title got me that match and skipped me a lot of matches. And if you have me wrestle a girl in the show, the fans are going to be entertained by it. Every match I've done against a women's wrestler thus far, it's been a very good reaction by the audience, and I'm really enjoying it. And I'm glad I decided to go this route, starting out back on the independents.
Mark wants to know how do you like to get blood? Are you a blood wrestler? Do you slice, gig? What do you do? Are you anti-blood? I'm paraphrasing his email, but I guess ultimately he wants to know what's your stance personally for you on blood and how do you do it?
I think if you do it, you build up to it. The guys hate each other so much that they've been having this long rivalry, like at least 9 months to a year. They're beating the crap out of each other all over the world, and you end it in a cage match, and it's a bloodbath, and because they hate each other so much. I think there is a time and a place for it, and I think that's just it. You have to build up for it. If two guys just meet and there's blood, it's like, man, okay, that's all. That's for nothing. They just met. It's their first match together. You build up for something like that because then it means more when you do it.
Do you have to be talked into bleeding? I mean, you personally?
No, man. Like on the independents, before WWE, I would bleed when I would build up those rivalries with the guys. Like I was working a promotion once a month, and I was, in a rivalry with the same guy every month. We'd have the blow off, and I would bleed, and I would only do it if it was a hated rivalry because that's one it's called for.
All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about what you have coming up. Of course, you have your pro wrestling tees. You're going to the UK. I saw something that you now FaceTime people.
It's called Cameo. Download the app, and I'm very fairly new to it too, but I did a couple today. It's like bookcameo.com. The information's on my Twitter. Just scroll down, you'll find it. And yeah, basically people pay a fee, and they have celebrities FaceTime them a video, and you pay the fee, and you ask the celebrity in an email on Cameo, what you want them to say in the video, and as soon as I send the video, the money's sent over. It's on hold until you send the video, and then I send it over, and yeah, it's another unique way to be connected with your fans. And I did a couple of today. Today was my first day doing it, and man, it was cool, and I can't wait to do more.
All right, your bookings, UK, anything after that you want to promote?
Oh man, yeah. As soon as I get back from the UK, I'm in San Antonio, Texas, Friday for RCW. Saturday, I'm in Indiana for a show. Then Sunday, I'm in West Virginia for Undisputed Championship Wrestling. It's crazy, man. I'm literally it started last Thursday, and it goes to this Sunday. I'm wrestling 10 out of 12 days. It's insanely awesome.
Wow. And you can always follow you at Real Ellsworth. And let's talk a little bit about Facebook. I saw you post a video about there are many imposter James Ellsworth pages out there. Where can they find the right James Ellsworth?
Well, on Facebook, I have 5,000 friends. I'm the only one that has 5,000 friends under the name James Ellsworth. So go check me out there. On Instagram, it's James Ellsworth Wrestling. Check me out on there. you didn't say Instagram, so I had to put it over. Duh. Yeah, man, and just like on my Twitter at Real Ellsworth, or on Instagram at James Ellsworth Wrestling, or on my Facebook page, James Ellsworth. I'm always promoting where I'm going to be, so you can check all those social media outlets out, and you'll see where I'm at. And if you want to buy some James Ellsworth merchandise, go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Ellsworth. You'll see all the cool shirts. We even got a one on there. Go check it out.
No MySpace?
Dude, I used to love MySpace. Like, I met so many girls on there when I was like in my, early 20s. You just brought back some good memories just saying the word MySpace. It was great. That was my favorite social media outlet of all time.
You're welcome. And don't forget, we will be, I think we'll wait until you come back to start giving away the autographed pictures of you and Petey. All you guys have to do is listen to the podcast, share the podcast with your friends. Hey, follow us, at Real Ellsworth on Twitter, at IPD Williams, or at Dennis77Farrell. I'm optional, of course. But and tell a friend, and then all you got to do is send us an email and say, hey, I told a friend, and then we'll throw your name in a drawing to win some of these pictures. I think it's great, James.
No, yeah, it's more work for me. No, it's great, man. Like, I love the fans, and I don't mind at all giving back and giving out free pictures and stuff like that. I love the fans. I just don't like you.
I get that a lot. Petey feels the same way, by the way.
Yeah, I'm sure he does. He's a smart guy. He's been in business a long time, and we just quite frankly get annoyed by people like you. But that's okay, because the Dogcast is doing great.
So, guys, thank you so much. James, enjoy your trip. We'll have one, next week, too. We'll figure out how we'll do that. But it's this week's Dogcast. James, good show.
That's because I'm the star. Duh!